Hi, and welcome to my channel, Survive Your Life. If you're new here, thank you for joining me today for this video, and for all my returning subscribers and people that aren't subscribed but periodically tune in. Thank you for being here today. My name is Christiana, and I wanted to talk to you today about the loss of a sibling. And I don't know if any of you have gone through the loss of a sibling, but I have, and I just wanted to share my experience with you about the loss of my sister. I had a younger sister named Kimberly, and she was about 2.5, not quite 3 years younger than I am. And we were not always close. I do remember when we were growing up, we were relatively close up until a certain point, and that was where we entered our preteen years. So I was looking at being around 12, maybe 13, and my sister was around 10 and a half, 11, and my parents were about to split and divorce, and my mother was having to discipline both of us and basically manage the entire household. And we were in a fairly large home at that time too, so she had a lot on her plate at that time. So trying to control and manage her two preteen daughters was a bit of a challenge. And that's where my sister and I started to splinter a bit in our relationship. At least that's where I noticed it happening. Prior to that, we were best friends. We used to share friends in the neighborhood, and we would play, and we would play games inside and outside the house. And since we were from New England, and even when we moved to New Jersey, we had snow days, and we'd be out in the snow having all kinds of fun. But in New Jersey is the beginning stages of where my mother was starting to lose control parentally over the two of us. And my sister had a bit of an anger issue at a very young age, and it seemed to be I was the focal point for her where her anger was concerned. And I won't get into much of that right now, because that's not what this video is about. But just trying to paint a little picture for you as far as what our relationship was. And we kind of went like this with our sisterly relationship. We'd come in and be close for a bit, and then we'd have a wider part of our relationship where we were not as close. But you know, she was my sister, I was her sister, and no matter what, I loved my sister, and there really wasn't much that I wouldn't do for her. But fast forwarding to the mid 2000s, and we're looking at like 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those like 5, 6, 7 years were very difficult for my sister, and our relationship had really been T-boned many years earlier, back in the 1990s. We had a bit of an issue go on, and I really didn't think that it was ever going to be repairable. She and I did not speak for about 10 years, and that was a very, very difficult time for me. I know it was for my mother, because she wanted to see her two daughters reconcile and move past the issue, but it just wasn't going to happen on her terms. It was really going to be more on my sister's terms, because I had offered on numerous occasions to try to extend an olive branch or what have you, just to let my sister know that I was there for her. And at some point, I think it was shortly after I went through my divorce, I ended up back at my mother's house, and I was staying there just temporarily. And I don't know, I had come home from work one night, and my mother pulled me aside and said, "Your sister's coming over." And I thought, okay. Well, I hadn't seen her I had seen pictures of her and maybe seen her sitting at an intersection, like I'm sitting at this red light and she's over there, and I see her in her car, and that was like the most that I had seen her. And so the fact that she was coming over made me feel a little uneasy, because I didn't really know what kind of disposition she was going to present at that point, because she had tried to get rather physical with me, and at one point several years earlier, and I just thought, okay, she still had these anger issues and things that she personally needed to work through, and I don't know, she was just coming over. And I said, "Is there any more information that you can give me about this? Why is she coming?" She said she needs a place to stay. And I thought, okay, again, I'm thinking, all right, so now she's going to be staying here. I'm going to be staying here. She's going to be staying here. We're going to be sharing the bathroom in the hallway. And I remember how sharing that bathroom when we were in high school was like. We were going to have to do that on shifts, because that just wasn't really going to work out. According to historically how that had gone back in the early 1990s, it didn't really work out very well when we were in high school. So, or when we started dating, that was another one. But anyway, she came in. She actually gave me a hug out in the driveway. She had her two soon-to-be ex-boyfriend's pickup truck in the driveway full of her belongings, and she was making trips back and forth and dropping a lot of things off, putting them in my mother's garage. And I offered to help. She said, "No, it'd just be easier if I just do this by myself." And so I let her go and do her thing. Well, once she got settled, I had a day off, she had a day off, and my mom was there, and the three of us sat down and we were talking, and she was kind of pointing to her chest and feeling around at this thing in her chest, and I felt it, and whatever it was, because we didn't know at the time, it felt like, if you know what a walnut shell feels like before you crack the walnut open and get to the nut, that texture, and nearly that hard. Felt like a rock hard underneath her skin. And I'm like, what the heck is that? That's really strange. Well, there wasn't anything on her skin, it just was like a lump there. Well, she went to a number of different doctors. She went to her chiropractor, and he said, "Hey, this looks like a dislocated rib head. Let me adjust it." And he's like pressing on her chest and pushing this thing, and it's not budging. And she went to some other doctors, other chiropractors, and they're still trying to do these adjustments on her. Well, long story short, my mother took her to an oncologist and told her that she had breast cancer. It was a tumor. And from that point forward, my sister decided, and this was her own choice, to forego any traditional medical treatments. No chemotherapy, no radiation. She wanted to handle this on her own, and she wanted to do it holistically. And I know that there are people who have been able to overcome cancer holistically. However, the protocol has to be followed to the letter. You cannot deviate one bit from your protocol at all. And I guess my mother had done a lot of research and was trying to guide my sister down the path to better health holistically. My mother does have a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, so you know, my mother, I think my sister trusted my mother to, you know, guide her and steer her in the right direction. Well, I guess at some point she was going to go to a, I guess what you would call an underground treatment facility. They have them out west, like in, I want to say Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, where you go in, it's a lot of money, but you go in and they detox your entire life from head to toe, everything detox. You come out of there, it's like nothing was ever wrong with you. HIV, cancer, AIDS, you name it, whatever your issue is, these places take care of you. They release you, you're done, you go live your life, but you have to obviously make a lot of life changes so that you can maintain your health. I mean, these places are no nonsense. And she bought this huge suitcase, and I mean, big enough that if she had gone halfway, you know, like folded herself in half, she could have gotten in it. This suitcase was huge, and she was on board with this, and she was going to go out there. I don't know what happened, but she changed her mind and wasn't going to go. And that's when I thought, whoop, here comes the first red flag. And red flags just started going up, 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 and up. And I was questioning greatly her protocol and what my mother had found for her. And there was a holistic gentleman in the town north of where my mother lives that had treated our family over the years, and for the most part had done a fairly good job. He was pretty spot on in being able to determine what was wrong with you, and had different modalities and methods of being able to test you and determine what was wrong with you. Most people would determine him to be a quack, I guess, but my family did not have any issues with him. I began to have some issues with him over the years, but you know, I wanted to stay out of whatever my sister was trying to do. I wanted to support her because the last thing she needed was to have a lot of resistance, which could stress her. And I know that cancer, just like with anything else, you really need to reduce greatly your level of stress incoming into your life, because it really just doesn't help. If you're being stressed, it affects your emotional state, and then you start to sink. That just powers and fuels whatever is going on in your body, and it's not beneficial to that person who is not well. So emotionally, physically, psychologically, financially, those were aspects that were affecting my sister at the time. I had a job at that time where I was giving my sister some cash to help with some of the treatments. She was having vitamin drips done and other intravenous treatments she was having. I would give her money as I had it to help her pay for some of those things, because eventually, I mean, she tried as hard as she could to stay with her job. She was a property manager at a condo complex up in Sarasota, Florida, and they had a lot of seasonal people there, so she would facilitate, you know, the renting of some of these properties and just kind of ran the office and that kind of thing. Oh, that's midnight. But anyway, she had some high stress in that job, and some people were nitpicking her, and she was trying to balance and keep to herself. She never breathed a word to anyone that she had cancer. Very difficult to do sometimes. They fired her, period. Okay, so they fired her. She lost her health insurance, and so that's where I was trying to help her pay for whatever it was that she needed done at the time. And as it progressed, I mean, at this point, we're like at 2008, 2009, 2010. This thing if you have a cancer tumor and you do not have radiation or chemotherapy, it's going to come through the skin. It just does. It's going to present itself, introduce itself to the world, to you. You're gonna look down, you're gonna see it, and it's ugly. It smells terrible. It smells like rotting flesh, rotting meat. It smells like that. If you've ever smelled a dead body, if you've ever walked into a place and discovered someone's body, that's what it smells like. And it got to the point where I would spend some nights over with my sister in her apartment. She's still living in an apartment on her own, paying her rent from her savings account, and she was becoming fearful of staying alone at night. So my mom and I would take shifts and go and spend nights over with her. And I started noticing some things, like she would be eating canned asparagus, like with a fork. She'd just pop the can open, drain it, and she'd have a fork and she'd be walking around her apartment eating asparagus from a can and tuna fish from a can. And I questioned her about that, and she went up one side of me and down the other. Basically, don't question me about what I'm doing. And so I thought, okay, because her temper was back to what it used to be when we were younger, which was really quick to temper, very short fuse, and I didn't want to upset her. So I told my mom, and she said, yeah, I know, that's what she's doing. I said, well, what are you going to do about it? Because you're the one that introduced her to these therapies that are supposed to be all natural and helping her. I said, she's not going to listen to me and she's going to take my hat off. I said, what are you going to do about it? You know, because honestly, at this point, I feel she needs an intervention, because the cancer tumor had literally just eaten her one breast away completely. And there were some things that my mom that was using on her that were working. Like I could see them physically working for her, but yet she was like losing steam. Like she was really starting to pale and fade away a bit. And I saw her making some changes in her apartment, and it just, none of the changes she was making were for her benefit at all. And so I tried to back off as much as I could, but I expressed my concern to my mom, and my mom said she was going to take care of it. Well, long story short, again, here we go to another section of this. My sister ended up at my mom's house living there. She had to, well, she actually ended up being evicted. That's a completely different story, which really didn't help her circumstances to be evicted from her home where she was the most comfortable, having to go back to my mom's house. And that opened up another can of worms. But trying to move the story along a little bit, she began to decline at my mother's house, just as I figured she probably would. Going to my mother's house at this point in my life, if I had, and at this point she had stage 4. It was stage 4 cancer. And her oncologist had mentioned that she had to stop these medications and then go on these medications. So she was taking some prescription medications that were prescribed by a traditional medical doctor, but it was almost too late at this point to, you know, for any of this to work, whether it was holistic or traditional. One or the other should have been the precedent. You know, it should have been the focal point, with the other as a supplement, not starting this, stopping this, starting this, stopping this, or then, oh, let's try this again, and then let's bring it together. It's, you know, if you want to do both together from the very beginning, I think that's great, or just choose one and stick with it. But it got so mucked up for her that I really don't think that she stood a chance. And she had good days and bad days. It was getting to a point where she was having difficulty speaking on the phone, so I would text her, and I would ask if I could come down. Was she having a good day? And sometimes she was having a good day and I could come down and see her. And then other times, you know, she was not having good days and she'd just say, I'm not having a good day. And so, all right. And then I got sick around Thanksgiving of 2010. And I was on my own. I think I don't know what I did for Thanksgiving dinner for myself, but I was by myself at the time and trying to get better because I didn't want to go see my sister and expose her to whatever it was that I had at the time. But it robbed me of 2 to 3 weeks that I could have seen my sister. And then December, it's like 10th or 11th, our dad passed away. And my mother was not honest with my father about the condition of my sister, so she lied to him, I guess to protect him and not upset him about the condition that my sister was in. But I feel that he should have had some idea as to how sick my sister really was. And then my first stepfather died December 26th, and sometime in January, I went down to see, well, I had seen my sister in December too, because I had gotten better, but I just remember that she had lost a lot of weight. I mean, a lot of weight. And my sister had always been about 5'6" or 5'7". I'm 5'2", so my sister was a bit taller, always has been, than I am for the younger sister. And she could get out of bed, but she had to stabilize herself. And my grandfather's walker was in her bedroom. And I'm like, here's a 36-year-old woman trying to get down the hallway with a walker. And she was trying to refuse the walker. She's like, look at me, watch what I can do. And she said, I'm gonna walk to the front door. Well, from her bedroom to the front door, it should take someone probably no more than maybe at the most 12 to 13 seconds to get from her door to the front door. It took almost a minute for her to go from one point to the front door. It was lengthy, and she just didn't look good. And then I came down again at some point, and we had a pocket door in her room, and I kind of moved it this way and peeked in, and I think my eyes were like this big, and I immediately kind of went like this back, and I had a very quick conversation with myself, like, you've got a look on your face you need to get rid of immediately, because I could tell that it was going to register on my face that what I was seeing in that bed didn't even look anything like my sister. She looked emaciated, her face was extremely drawn, and the first thought I had is, she's gonna die. I knew she was gonna die. I just knew it. I knew it. And I didn't know how to prepare myself for that. So I just took a few deep breaths, and then I moved the door back and, hey, sister, how you doing? And I talked to her a little bit, and I had a trip planned. I was going with someone to New York City, and she's like, take my suitcase with you, fill it up with whatever you need to take, or fill it up and bring it back with a bunch of stuff. Please take it. And then she got out of her bed and she's like, here, wear this. My sister always wore these pencil skirts. She looked great in a skirt. I look like a hooker in a skirt. But she had this skirt, and she's like, here, please wear it, you know, wear it on your trip. Promise me that you'll wear it. And I said, okay, I'll wear it. And I did. But I went to New York, and I texted my sister the entire time. I even it snowed while I was in New York, and I sent her a video of the snow. But on my mind during that trip, my sister was at the forefront of my mind and my thoughts, and I just couldn't wait to get back so that I could go see her. And I got back on the 25th, and by the 28th of January 2011, she was gone. And it's been it's been 13 years, and some people say, get over it, move on. Um, and, if there are people that can actually move on that quickly, good for them. But each one of us is a different person. Each one of us has, a different personality and different characteristics, and we all are not necessarily made up and wired the same way emotionally. And it's okay to show emotion. Um, it's okay to talk about the loss of your sibling with people. And you'll know who you can and cannot speak to by their reaction. If you can tell that they're kind of looking off this way and they're rolling their eyes and they look exasperated, or they're looking at their watch or their phone for the time, then that might not be quite the right person to talk to, because they may be thinking that you should be over this by now. Um, you grew up with this person, likely in the same household, and that person is no longer here. Whether you had a good relationship with them or not, having a great relationship with your sibling, yes, that loss can be very difficult, because now you don't have that partner anymore, that you grew up with to do things with. And they're not going to be there for some of the milestones that you're going to reach in your later years. Maybe you thought you were going to grow old together and the two of you were going to go do such and such together, or what have you. But for me, where my sister and I kind of ebbed and flowed, and we were kind of like the tide, it goes out, it comes back in, it goes back out. We were together and then we were apart, and then I had those 10 years where we didn't speak. And she died at 36. So, to have had lost those 10 years, 36 is not very old. And to lose those 10 years, it's just been difficult for me to think about that. So I try not to. I kind of have worked my way through that time period where we didn't speak. But, what I wanted to say is that if you have a sibling and you weren't close to them, or you were close and then you're not close, and then you're close and then you're not close, it just seems like something always is happening with your relationship, where you come and you go, and you come and you go, and you come and you go. Sometimes that's even more difficult than when you're close, because it's like, gosh, maybe I should have extended the olive branch. Maybe I should have just absorbed all the blame for that and just gotten over whatever the circumstance was. Don't beat yourself up over that. If that has happened, or you have a situation where you're going to lose your sibling and you haven't been that close, all I can tell you is that, and this would be the same advice if you have a parent that you're not close to, is to just show up for them, because it will be a lot easier for you to live with if you show up and just be there for them, even if you feel like they don't like you or what have you. Do what you need to do for yourself. If they gain any benefit out of it, that's even better. But do what you can live with, because you're going to have to live with it for the rest of your life. Because as their life ends, yours is continuing forward, and you have to be able to reconcile that with yourself. So, it hasn't been easy. I haven't had anyone tell me, oh, you should be over that, or you need to get over it. I haven't really had any counseling for it. I still, at this point, I feel like I could still sit down with a professional and tell them about what has happened. The one thing that I have done that has helped greatly is that my sister told my mother, before, when she first found out that she had cancer, she wanted to document and take a lot of pictures in different stages of what her breast looked like. And she did. But she told my mother, if I die, I want you to write my book, and I want you to talk about my story. Well, my mother said, I can't do it. I like to write. I'm a good writer. And I told my mom, I'll do it. I'll take that on, and I will take that responsibility and write the book for her. Well, I started writing it in maybe 2012 or 13. It's done, but I'm still waiting on a friend of mine to help me proofread and edit, because I've proofread and edited so many times. It's like it's time to put the paintbrush down, because the more I look at it and read it myself, the more I keep making changes to it. And I want to stop, and I'm going to work with him, and we're going to try to get the book published, probably through Amazon. Because I have another book that I've already published through Amazon, and that's kind of the route that I want to go. But writing that has really helped me greatly. And plus, if you watched, I think one of my very first videos was on journaling and the importance of it. And the first thing that I would recommend is, if you're going to lose your sibling, or you have, or it hasn't happened to you. It might not ever. I hope it doesn't. Not anytime soon anyway, and that is to just get a journal, a notebook, anything, and just write letters to them. Tell them how you feel. Even if it's an angry letter, write it, leave it, turn the page, write something else, turn the page. Don't tear anything out. Don't rip it up. Just let that book, that journal, notebook, absorb your emotions. Because if you can't talk to anyone else, or you don't have anyone else that really wants to listen or pay attention to you, the notebook, the journal, the writing will really help you to work through it. This isn't a bump in the road that you can just hop over. It's not a speed bump. It's not, something that rolled off the hill and it's sitting in the middle of the road. Maybe you can go around it, but you're kind of ignoring it by going around it, because you're not actually looking at it and dealing with it and figuring out how to move it off to the side. Moving through things is really, in my own experience, has been the best format for me to follow, is to just try to work through it and move through it, or deal with it and move it aside, because that's what you have to do. Just getting over something, just jumping over it and just chucking it in the past, and oh yeah, it's in the rear view mirror. You don't do that. You don't want someone to just be in your rear view mirror and you just go down the road and you just keep, they get farther and farther away from you as you move forward. That's not how life should work. That person has been a part of your life for a long time, and you don't want to just leave them back there, because eventually it will get to a point where you almost kind of forget about them, and you don't want to do that. That person's been a part of your life for a long time and had an influence and an impact on your life, and you don't want to discount that aspect at all. So I'm just speaking from my own experience. I've lost a parent, I've lost my sibling, and sometimes meeting people, they'll ask me if I have a sister, and sometimes you just don't know what to say. It's like I have to stop for a second and say, I used to. That's my answer now, is I used to. Oh, and then people kind of go, oh, I'm sorry, because they immediately know that I used to, which means that she's not here anymore. So either they'll shut it down, or they may ask, do you mind if I ask what happened? I don't mind if somebody asks me, what happened to my sister. I have no problem whatsoever telling someone and sharing her story a bit with someone else, and how I've managed to handle it up to this point. So yeah, it's been different, because I have 4 half brothers, and that's a completely different video. But I still at times do feel like an only child, because she's the sibling that I grew up with. Unfortunately, I was not able to grow up with my 4 half brothers. I met them much later in life. So yes, to a point, I feel alone. And it's hard. It really is hard, and especially since I don't really have any female friends. Most of my acquaintances and friends are men, ex-boyfriends, acquaintances, people that I know. They've all been very good to me and great listeners. So I've had some support, but really, you're pretty much on your own sometimes if you really think about it, having to work through some of these situations that come up in life where you have somebody and then they're gone, and sometimes it's a surprise. It's like this, just poof, they're gone. Or sometimes you have time to prepare for it. I don't know necessarily that I prepared for my sister's passing, especially that one day where I pushed her door and I saw her. I took a peek at her and I thought, ugh, she's not looking good at all. She's not gonna last. And there wasn't really anything that anyone could do. She could go into a hospital and she probably still would have passed. She was just too far gone at that point. But I know that I can live with what I was able to do for her. I wish that I could have been in a position to do more. But I just feel that her entire case was pretty grossly mishandled. And I think that it could have been dealt with more maturely and more responsibly than it had been. But I can't do anything about that now, unfortunately. But, you know, this is just my story, and the anniversary of her passing, January 28th. So 13 years it's been, and my life has not been the same at all, not one bit. And it's an adjustment. It's a huge adjustment not having her around, and especially since we were really starting to come back together and be strong as sisters. I was really hoping that she would be able to pull through this, and she and I would be together today. Because I think if she was, I probably would not be sitting where I am right now in Tennessee. I know she would probably still be living in Florida, and I probably would not have left the state and left my sister behind at all. So sometimes when people pass, your life, the path that you were on changes, and it's like you're on the road and maybe you get off on this exit and you try here, and then maybe you get back on the road later on down the line. It's just, my life just definitely has not been the same. It's been kind of like, it's been like this ever since. And yeah, I mean, the loss of my dad first, and then my first stepfather second, and then my sister, all of that happened within a 45-day period of time. So 3 people passing in 45 days is a lot to deal with. It makes you question your own mortality, and it's like one person dies and then someone else dies, and it's like, is there someone else that's going to? And sure enough, it was my sister. And for a while after that, I thought, gosh, is somebody else going to pass as well? And I don't think anyone did, but it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. But I may do a video on the loss of a parent too, because the loss of a parent and the loss of a sibling, 2 different relationships completely, and especially depending on what kind of relationship you have to your parent. If it's a good, strong, respectful, honorable relationship versus one that perhaps is not as fortified as a lot of other people have with their parent or their sibling. So wasn't expecting this to be as long. I have been having some technical difficulties, otherwise this video would have gone up on time. But I've got some other videos that I'm trying to get up in a timely manner, and they may or may not go up on time, but I'm going to do my best. So just wanted to share that with you. If you're liking the content here, please consider subscribing and like the video if you did. And consider sharing it with somebody if you know someone who has recently lost a brother or a sister, because I definitely understand what that loss is like and how it has permanently affected my life. So, all right, I'm going to let you go for now, and I appreciate you, and survive your life. I know you can do it. All right, take care.